The stars had always called to humanity. For thousands of years, they looked up at the night sky and wondered what was out there. They built telescopes. They sent probes. They dreamed of the day when they would finally leave their small blue planet and join the rest of the S. In the year 2347, that dream came true. Admiral Doan Park stood at the observation window of the UES Dawn. Watching the swirling colors of faster-than-light travel dance across the glass, he was 62 years old, with gray hair cut short in military fashion and deep lines around his eyes from decades of service. He had fought in 3 wars, commanded 5 ships, and buried more friends than he cared to remember. But today he was not a soldier. Today, he was a messenger of peace. "Admiral, we will arrive at the Council Station in 4 hours," said Lieutenant Hannah Yoon, stepping up beside him. She was young, barely 30, with sharp eyes and a quick mind. The Federation had chosen her specifically for this mission, because she spoke 7 languages and had studied alien cultures for most of her adult life. Doan nodded slowly. "Are you nervous, Lieutenant?" Hannah smiled. "A little. We are about to meet species that have existed for millions of years. Species that have built empires across the stars while we were still learning to make fire. And yet they invited us," Doan said. "That means something." 3 months ago, humanity had received its first message from beyond the solar system. The Galactic Council, a governing body of 42 alien species, had detected Earth's faster-than-light experiments. They were inviting humanity to send a representative. To apply for membership in their great alliance, the message had been short, almost cold. But it was still an invitation. Doan turned away from the window and walked through the ship. The UES Dawn was not a warship. It carried no weapons. The Federation had built it specifically for this mission, a symbol of humanity's peaceful intentions. Its hull was painted white, and it flew the flags of every nation on Earth. The crew numbered only 50. Scientists, diplomats, translators, and a small security team. They had trained for 2 years for this moment. They had learned everything they could about the Council species from the data packet that came with the invitation. The Valari were the oldest and most powerful. They were tall beings made of living crystal, their bodies glowing with inner light. They had ruled the Council for over 100,000 years. Their technology was so advanced that it seemed like magic to human eyes. The other species varied wildly. Some were humanoid. Some were insect-like. Some existed as clouds of gas or living metal. But they all shared one thing in common. They looked down on younger species. They saw themselves as the wise elders of the galaxy. Guiding lesser races toward civilization, humanity was the youngest species ever invited to the Council. And Doan knew that many council members had opposed the invitation entirely. 4 hours later, the EU's Dawn dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The council station hung before them like a jewel against the darkness of space. It was massive, larger than Earth's moon. A spinning ring of metal and light that housed representatives from every member species. "Transmitting our credentials now," Hannah reported. "We have been assigned Docking Bay 7. Doan straightened his uniform. He wore the formal dress of the United Earth Federation, dark blue with silver trim. Medals from his years of service displayed on his chest. He had argued against wearing them. He did not want to appear militaristic. But the Federation Council had insisted. They wanted the galaxy to know that humanity sent its best. The docking process was smooth. When the airlock opened, Doan and Hannah stepped onto the station together. Behind them came a small group of diplomats and translators. Security stayed on the ship, as required by council law. A creature was waiting for them. It was small, barely reaching Doan's waist, with gray skin and large black eyes. Its mouth moved, but the words that reached Doan's ears came from a small device on its collar. Translated into perfect English. "Welcome, humans. I am Coordinator Vrix. I will guide you to the council chamber." Doan bowed his head respectfully. "Thank you, Coordinator. We are honored to be here." Vrix did not respond. It simply turned and began walking. Doan and his team followed. The station was beautiful. The corridors were wide and clean, lined with plants from 100 different worlds. Gravity varied slightly as they walked, adjusting to the comfort levels of different species. Screens displayed information in dozens of languages. Aliens of every shape and size passed by, some walking, some floating, some sliding along on trails of slime. None of them looked at the humans. Dohan noticed this. He also noticed that when aliens did glance their way, their expressions were not curious or welcoming. They were dismissive, disgusted even. He kept his face neutral and continued walking. The council chamber was enormous. It was a great circular room with rising tiers of seats, like an ancient amphitheater. Representatives from all 42 species sat in their designated areas. Watching as the human delegation entered at the highest point sat the Volari. Their crystalline bodies caught the light and scattered it into rainbows. At their center was a being larger than the rest, its crystal form a deep purple that pulsed with power. High Arbiter Thalix. Leader of the council, Doan, walked to the center of the chamber where a small platform waited for him. Hannah stood at his side, a recording device in her hand. This moment would be broadcast to every screen on Earth. Billions of people were watching. He cleared his throat and began to speak. High Arbiter, honored representatives, I am Admiral Doan Park of the United Earth Federation. I come before you today not as a soldier, but as a messenger. Humanity has dreamed of this moment for thousands of years. We have looked at the stars and wondered if we were alone. Now we know the answer. And we are humbled. We ask only for the chance to learn from you, to grow alongside you, and to contribute whatever we can to the peace and prosperity of the galaxy. We offer our hand in friendship. Stopped and waited. Silence then. High Arbiter Thalix spoke. Its voice was like breaking glass, sharp and cold. The council has reviewed your species, your history, your nature. The purple crystal pulsed brighter. You are violent, destructive. You have spent your entire existence killing each other. You poison your own world. You create weapons of mass destruction and threaten your own extinction every few decades. You are not civilized. You are animals. Doan felt his heart sink, but he kept his composure. With respect, High Arbiter, we acknowledge our past, but we have grown. We have united. We have put aside our differences and reached for the stars together. Surely that counts for something. It counts for nothing, Thalix replied. Your application for membership is denied. Leave this station. Do not return. A murmur ran through the chamber. Even some of the other species seemed surprised by the harshness of the response. Doan took a breath. He knew the protocols. He had studied them for months. Under Section 7 of the Galactic Charter, he said calmly, any species has the right to address the full council before a final decision is made. I invoke that right. Thalix's crystal form flashed with anger. You dare quote our laws at us? You, an animal barely out of your caves? I mean no disrespect. I only ask for what the law allows. For a long moment, Thalix stared at him. Then it raised one crystalline limb. Silence this creature. 2 guards appeared from the sides of the chamber. They were Volari as well, their bodies sharp and angular. They moved toward Doan with frightening speed. Hannah screamed his name. Doan did not run. He stood tall, his hands at his sides, his eyes fixed on Thalix. The guard's arm passed through his chest. There was a flash of light, a moment of searing heat, and then Admiral Doan Park ceased to exist. His body vaporized in an instant. Not even ash remained. Hannah stumbled backward, her recording device still running. The chamber erupted in noise. Some species cheered. Others sat in shocked silence. The human diplomats were frozen, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Remove the rest of them, Thalix commanded. They have 20 hours to leave council space. If any human ship is detected after that, it will be destroyed. Hannah ran. She grabbed the other humans and pulled them toward the exit, her heart pounding, her mind screaming. The guards let them go. They were not worth killing. The U.S. Dawn undocked within the hour. As it jumped to faster-than-light travel, Hannah sat alone in the observation room, clutching the recording device. Billions of people had watched Admiral Doan Park die, and now billions of people waited to see what would happen next. The video played on every screen on Earth, in homes and offices, in schools and hospitals and coffee shops and train stations. People stopped what they were doing and watched. They watched Admiral Doan Park stand before the Galactic Council. They watched him speak of peace and friendship. They watched a crystal monster call him an animal, and they watched him die. The reaction was not immediate. It was not loud. It was something deeper, something quieter. A cold silence that spread across the planet like frost on a winter morning in Seoul. An old woman sat in her living room and wept. Doan had been her son's commander 30 years ago. He had written her a letter when her son died in combat. He had told her that her boy was brave and good. Now she watched the man who wrote that letter turn to dust. In New York, a businessman stopped in the middle of Times Square. Screens towering above him showed the moment of death on repeat. He had never met Doan Park. He had never served in the military. But something inside him cracked as he watched. In a small village in Kenya, children gathered around a single screen. Their teacher had turned it on to show them the historic moment of first contact. Now she hurried to turn it off, but she was too late. The children had seen everything around the world. The reaction was the same: shock, disbelief, and then, slowly, something else began to grow. Something that burned in the hearts of 8 billion people raged. The U's Dawn arrived back on Earth 3 weeks later. Lieutenant Hannah Yoon was the first one off the ship. She had not slept more than 2 hours at a time since leaving Council Space. She had watched the recording 100 times. She had memorized every word, every gesture, every flicker of light. Reporters surrounded her as she stepped onto the tarmac. Cameras flashed. Questions were shouted. But Hannah did not stop. She walked through the crowd like a ghost, her eyes fixed straight ahead, till she reached the car that was waiting for her. President Mingi Kong was inside. "Lieutenant," the president said softly. "I am sorry." Hannah looked at her. Mingi Kong was 54 years old, a former diplomat who had spent her life building bridges between nations. She had been the one who chose Doan for this mission. She had been the one who believed that humanity could earn its place among the stars through peace. Now her eyes were red from crying. "He did everything right," Hannah said. "He was respectful. He was calm. He followed their own laws. And they killed him for it. I know. They called us animals. They said we were not civilized. And then they murdered a man who came to them with open hands." "What?" Minji nodded slowly. "The world wants to know what we will do." Hannah was silent for a moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out the recording device. "The world needs to see this again. All of it. Not just the death. Everything. The way they looked at us. The way they spoke to us. The contempt. The arrogance. They need to understand what we are dealing with." Mingi took the device. And then Hannah said, "We make them pay." 2 days later, President Mingi Kong addressed the world. She stood on a stage in Geneva, the headquarters of the United Earth Federation. Behind her hung the flags of every nation, the same flags that had flown on the U's Dawn. Before her stood representatives from every country, every culture, every corner of the planet, and beyond the stage. Billions watched. 3 weeks ago, Minji began, we sent our best to the stars. Admiral Doan Park was a hero, a soldier who became a peacemaker, a man who believed that humanity's future lay not in conflict, but in cooperation. He went to the Galactic Council with nothing but hope in his heart. She paused. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. They killed him. They did not kill him because he threatened them. They did not kill him because he broke their laws. They killed him because he dared to ask for respect, because he dared to suggest that humanity deserved a voice. On screens around the world, the footage played again. Doan standing tall, the guard moving toward him, the flash of light. The empty space where he had been. The Galactic Council has ruled the stars for 100,000 years, Minji continued. They believe they are superior. They believe younger species exist only to serve them or to be ignored. They looked at humanity and saw nothing worth saving. Her voice hardened. They were wrong. The crowd before her was silent. The world was silent. I am declaring a period of mourning. 7 days. 7 days to honor Admiral Park and all that he represented. 7 days to grieve for the future he tried to build. She took a breath. And when those 7 days are over, we will show the galaxy what humanity truly is. Not animals. Not primitives. Not creatures to be dismissed and destroyed. We are survivors. We are fighters. We have faced extinction a dozen times and clawed our way back every single time. We will not be silenced. We will not be forgotten. We will be remembered. She stepped back from the podium. The world erupted. During those 7 days of mourning, humanity showed a unity it had never shown before. Old enemies embraced. Ancient grudges were set aside. Nations that had threatened each other with nuclear weapons now shared intelligence and resources. The entire planet moved as one, and beneath the surface, preparations began. Fleet Admiral Tai Wuxin was 70 years old. He had served in the military for 50 of those years. Rising through the ranks until he commanded every ship in humanity's fleet, he was a quiet man, soft-spoken and thoughtful. But those who knew him understood that behind his gentle eyes was a mind like a steel trap. On the second day of mourning, he met with the War Council in a bunker deep beneath the Swiss Alps. "Show me everything," he said. The screens around him lit up with data. Ship counts, weapons systems, defense networks. Everything Lieutenant Hannah had brought back from the council station. Tai Wu studied it all in silence. "They are old," he said finally. "Their technology is advanced, but it has not changed in thousands of years. They stopped innovating long ago." General Sumino, his second in command, nodded. "Their ships are ceremonial, beautiful, but not built for real combat. They have not fought a major war in over 6,000 years. Their soldiers? Mostly robots. Automated systems. The Valari themselves rarely fight. They consider it beneath them." Tai Wu leaned back in his chair. "And what do they know about us? Very little. They dismissed us as primitives. They did not bother to study our military history or our technology." A small smile crossed Tai Wu's face. It was not a happy smile. "Then they have made a very serious mistake." On the third day of mourning, production facilities around the world went into overdrive. Shipyards that had been building exploration vessels were retooled for warships. Weapons factories that had been mothballed for decades roared back to life. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock, studying the alien technology from the data packet and finding ways to adapt it. On the fifth day, the first new ships rolled off the assembly lines. They were not as pretty as council ships. They were blocky and utilitarian, designed for one purpose and one purpose only. They were weapons. On the sixth day, volunteers lined up at recruitment centers around the world. There were so many that most had to be turned away. Young and old, rich and poor, from every nation and every background, they came. They wanted to fight. On the seventh day, as the sun set over Geneva, President Minji Kung stood alone in her office. She looked out the window at the city below. People were gathered in the streets, holding candles, singing songs of remembrance. There was a knock at her door. "Enter." Fleet Admiral Tai Wuxin stepped inside. His face was grim but determined. "We are ready," he said. Minji closed her eyes. She thought of Doan Park. She thought of his family. She thought of the future he had dreamed of. The peaceful galaxy where humanity stood as equals among the stars. That dream was dead now, killed by the same beings who had killed him. But perhaps something could be built from its ashes. Something stronger. She opened her eyes and turned to face Tai Wu. "Make them remember us." Tai Wu saluted. "Yes, Madam President." He left the office. Minutes later, orders were transmitted to every ship in the fleet. Engines ignited. Crews took their stations, and humanity went to war. The first target was a supply station on the edge of a council space. Admiral Yaren Cho, commanded the 7th Strike Fleet from the bridge of the UES Vengeance. She was 45 years old, small in stature, but fierce in spirit. Her crew called her the Ghost because of how quietly she moved through the ship, appearing in places where no one expected her. Now, she watched on the main screen as her fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The supply station hung before them, a massive structure surrounded by cargo ships and fuel tankers. There were only 3 patrol vessels guarding it. "Open a channel," Yaren ordered. Her communications officer nodded. "Channel open. Attention, Council Station. This is Admiral Yaren Cho of the United Earth Federation. You have 1 hour to evacuate all personnel. Any ships that leave will not be harmed. Any ships that remain will be destroyed." She cut the channel and waited. The response came quickly. A Vellery commander appeared on screen, its crystalline face twisted with what might have been amusement. "You dare threaten us? You are insects. Turn back now, and we may allow you to live." Yaren smiled coldly. "You have 59 minutes. She cut the transmission. The council did not evacuate. They believed it was a bluff. They believed that the primitive humans would flee at the first sign of resistance. They were wrong. 59 minutes later, 7th Strike Fleet opened fire. Human weapons tore through the patrol vessels in seconds. They had been designed for ceremony, not for battle. Their shields flickered and died. Their hulls cracked and broke. The supply station lasted only slightly longer. Yaren had studied its design from the data packet Lieutenant Hannah had brought back. She knew exactly where to hit. Missiles found weak points in the armor. Energy beams sliced through support structures. Within 10 minutes, the entire station was falling apart. Yaren watched the destruction without pleasure. This was not revenge. This was strategy. The supply station fed 3 major council colonies. Without it, those colonies would begin to starve within months. They would have to divert resources from other sectors. The council's carefully balanced economy would start to crack. "Set course for the next target," she ordered. "We are just getting started." News of the attack spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The council was furious. How dare these animals strike at their infrastructure? How dare they challenge the might of the oldest civilization in the known universe? But beneath the fury was confusion. Their intelligence had told them that humanity had only a small fleet, barely 300 ships. The humans should have been easy to crush. Instead, they were everywhere. Human ships struck at dozens of targets across council space. They did not attack planets. They did not attack civilians. They hit supply lines, communication relays, shipyards, and military outposts. Every target was carefully chosen. Every attack was fast and brutal, and then the human ships vanished. They jumped too faster than light travel and disappeared before council forces could respond. The council tried to fight back. They sent patrol fleets to hunt down the human ships. But the humans seemed to know where the patrols would be before they arrived. They avoided traps. They struck at undefended targets. They moved like ghosts through the void. Fleet Admiral Taiwu Shin had spent his entire life studying warfare. He had read every military text ever written, from ancient battles fought with swords and spears to modern conflicts waged with drones and missiles. He understood something that the council had forgotten long ago. War was not about strength. War was about strategy. The council had ruled the galaxy through intimidation. They had the biggest ships, the most advanced weapons, the largest armies. For 6,000 years, no one had dared to challenge them. But they had grown soft. They had forgotten how to fight. They had forgotten what it felt like to face an enemy who was not afraid. Humanity was afraid. They were terrified. But they had learned, through thousands of years of bloody conflict, that fear could be a weapon. Fear could make you careful. Fear could make you clever. Fear could make you dangerous. 3 months into the war, the council finally decided to respond in force. High Arbiter Thalix himself gave the order. The Grand Armada, the mightiest fleet in the galaxy, was mobilized for the first time in 4,000 years. 2,000 ships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humanity could build. They gathered at the Kairos Nebula, a vast cloud of gas and dust that sat at the border of council space. From there, they would advance into human territory. They would burn every colony, destroy every ship, and wipe humanity from the stars. Fleet Admiral Tai Wu-shin received the intelligence report on his flagship, the UES Horizon. He read it 3 times, then called his senior officers to the conference room. "The Grand Armada," he said simply. 2,000 ships. They are gathering at Cairo's Nebula. General Sumino looked at the numbers and shook her head. "We have 300 ships. Even with our tactics, we cannot fight those odds." "No," Tai Wu agreed. "We cannot fight those odds with conventional warfare." He tapped a control, and a holographic image appeared above the table. It showed a small device, no larger than a human hand. "This is what our engineers have been working on for the past 3 months," he said. "We call it the Echo. It is a hybrid weapon, built using Council technology combined with human innovation." He explained how it worked. The Council's shields operated on specific energy frequencies. Human scientists had analyzed those frequencies and developed a device that could match them exactly, then overload them. One Echo could disable a ship's shields in seconds. "The Council has been using the same shield technology for 10,000 years, Tai Wu continued. "They never needed to change it. No one ever challenged them." He smiled grimly. "We are going to make them regret that." Admiral Yeren Cho studied the hologram. "How many Echoes do we have? Enough? We have been producing them around the clock since the project was completed 2 weeks ago." General Sumin frowned. "Even without shields, their ships are more powerful than ours. Their weapons hit harder. Their armor is stronger," True Tai Wu acknowledged. "But they have a weakness. They are slow to adapt. Their commanders follow rigid protocols that have not changed in centuries. They do not improvise. They do not take risks. We do." He pulled up a tactical display showing the Cairo's Nebula. "The nebula itself is our ally. The gas clouds will disrupt their sensors and communications. They will have to rely on visual contact and short-range coordination. Their numerical advantage will mean less in confined space." Yeren nodded slowly. "You want to lure them into the nebula? Want to trap them there?" The Battle of Cairo's Nebula began 6 days later. The Grand Armada advanced in perfect formation, 2,000 ships arranged in precise geometric patterns. They looked beautiful, like a constellation come to life. Their commanders were confident. They had never lost a battle. They never would. Human ships appeared at the edge of the nebula. Only 200 of them. The Council commanders laughed. This would be a slaughter. Then the humans retreated into the nebula. The Grand Armada followed. They would not let the vermin escape. Inside the nebula, everything changed. The gas clouds blocked sensors and jammed communications, just as Tai Wu had predicted. Council ships that had been linked together in a perfect network suddenly found themselves isolated, unable to coordinate. They slowed down, trying to maintain formation. The humans did not slow down. They split into small groups of 10 or 20 ships, moving through the nebula like wolves hunting deer. They struck from unexpected angles. They appeared out of nowhere, fired their weapons, and vanished before the Council could respond. And their weapons were different now. Echo devices, detonated against Council shields, and those shields failed instantly. Human missiles, which Council commanders had dismissed as primitive, suddenly found their targets unprotected. Ships that had survived for centuries died in seconds. Admiral Yeren Cho led the fiercest attacks. Her ghost's nickname proved prophetic. She seemed to be everywhere at once. Her ships striking at command vessels and weapons platforms, sowing chaos and confusion. The Council tried to adapt. They tried to tighten their formation to bring their superior firepower to bear. But the nebula was too dense. They could not see their enemies. They could only hear them dying. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Grand Armada no longer existed. 2,000 ships, the pride of the Galactic Council, reduced to debris floating in a cloud of gas and dust. Human losses were minimal. 23 ships damaged. None destroyed. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread. Species that had served the Council for millennia watched in disbelief. The invincible Valari had been defeated by animals, by insects, by creatures barely out of their caves. High Arbiter Thalax received the report in the council chamber. For a long moment, he did not speak. His crystalline body flickered with colors no one had ever seen before. Fear. He was feeling fear around him. The other council members began to whisper. Some called for peace negotiations. Some called for retreat. Some called for surrender. Thalax silenced them with a gesture. "We will not surrender to animals," he declared. "We have ruled the galaxy for 100,000 years. We will not fall to creatures who discovered fire yesterday." But his voice trembled as he spoke, and everyone in the chamber heard it. Humanity had done the impossible. They had broken the council's power. They had proven that the old masters of the galaxy were not invincible, and they were just getting started. The collapse began slowly, and all at once the Malrai were the first to break. They were a small species, insect-like creatures, who had joined the council 8,000 years ago. They had always been loyal servants, following Valari orders without question. But when human ships appeared above their homeworld, they did not hesitate. A transmission was broadcast on all frequencies. "We surrender. We had no part in the death of your envoy. We wish only for peace." Fleet Admiral Taiwu Shin read the message on the bridge of the UES horizon. He turned to his communications officer. "Respond. Tell them their surrender is accepted. Our ships will not harm them. We will send representatives to discuss terms." The officer hesitated. "Sir, some of the crew are asking why we should show mercy." The Mallory sat in that chamber and watched Admiral Park die. They did nothing. Tivu's face was hard. "I know, but we are not them. We do not murder those who surrender. We are better than that." The message was sent. The Mallory homeworld was blockaded, but not attacked. Human ships surrounded it, ensuring that no council forces could approach. But no weapons were fired. Word of this mercy spread quickly. The Keth surrendered next. Then the Drin. Then a dozen more species, all broadcasting the same message. We did not want war. We did not support the Valari. Please, let us live. Within 2 months, half the council had collapsed. Species that had been united for millennia now turned on each other. Old rivalries resurfaced. Old grudges were remembered. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for 100,000 years was falling apart. President Kong addressed the Federation Council in Geneva. "We have achieved more than we ever thought possible," she said. "The Galactic Council is broken. Their fleet is destroyed. Their allies are abandoning them. But our work is not done. We did not start this war for conquest. We started it for justice." She paused, looking at the faces around her. Admiral Doan Park died because he asked for respect. He died because he believed that even the powerful should follow their own laws. His killers are still free. That cannot stand. Captain Sun Wu-em stepped forward. He was 38 years old, a military prosecutor who had spent his career bringing war criminals to justice. Now he had been given a new mission. "I have assembled a task force," he reported. "We have been gathering evidence from surrendered species, testimony, recordings, documentation. We know exactly who voted for Admiral Park's execution. We know who gave the order. We know who carried it out." He displayed a list of names on the screen. 16 names, all high-ranking council officials. At the top of the list was High Arbiter Thalax. These individuals are responsible for the murder of a diplomatic envoy under protection of galactic law. Under both human and council legal standards, this is a crime of the highest order. Minji nodded. "Can we capture them?" Sun Wu's face was grim. "Most of them are on the Valari homeworld. The Valari have refused all communication. They have retreated behind their planetary shields and declared that any ship approaching will be destroyed. What do we know about those shields? They are the strongest in the galaxy. No weapon has ever penetrated them. The Valari have relied on them for security for over 50,000 years." Silence fell over the chamber. Then a young woman stood up from the back of the room. She was barely 26 years old, with short black hair and glasses that seemed too big for her face. Her name was Bora Han, and she was the most brilliant physicist humanity had ever produced. "I can break them," she said. Everyone turned to look at her. "The Volari shields operate on resonance principles," Bora explained. "They create a field of vibrating energy that reflects incoming attacks. But resonance works both ways. If you hit the shield with the exact right frequency, you do not push against it. You make it vibrate. And if you push the vibration high enough, the shield will shatter." Tai Wuxin leaned forward. "You are saying we can bring down their shields by singing at them?" Bora smiled slightly. "In a manner of speaking, I have designed a weapon that generates the exact frequency needed. I call it the harmonic pulse. In testing, it destroyed every Volari crystal sample we had within seconds. And how long until it is ready? It is ready now." 3 weeks later, the human fleet arrived at the Volari homeworld. It was a beautiful planet, covered in crystalline forests and towering spires of living stone. For 50,000 years, no enemy had ever reached its surface. The shields that surrounded it glowed with soft blue light. Impenetrable and eternal, Fleet Admiral Tai Wuxin stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, looking at the planet on the main screen. "Open a channel," he ordered. A Volari face appeared on screen. It was not Thalix, just a minor official tasked with telling the humans to leave. "You cannot harm us," the Volari said. "Our shields have protected us since before your species existed. Turn back now, and we may allow you to live." Taiwu had heard those words before. Every council species seemed to use them. "We are not here to destroy your planet," he said calmly. "We are here to arrest the criminals who murdered our envoy. Surrender them, and we will leave in peace." "You demand that we surrender the High Arbiter?" The Volari's crystal face flashed with outrage. "He is our supreme leader. He is above your primitive laws." "No one is above the law. Not even him." The Volari cut the transmission. Taiwu nodded to his weapons officer. "Fire the harmonic pulse." Aboard a specialized ship at the center of the fleet, Borahan sat at a control console. Her hands moved over the controls, making final adjustments. Then she pressed a button. A wave of energy shot toward the planet. It was invisible to the naked eye, but sensors showed it clearly. A pulse of pure frequency aimed directly at the shields. The shields began to vibrate. At first it was subtle, a slight shimmer in the blue light. Then the shimmer became a wave. The wave became a storm. The entire shield began to oscillate wildly, energy patterns going chaotic. And then a sound emerged. A single pure note that echoed across space. It was beautiful and terrible. It's like the cry of a dying god. The shields shattered. Fragments of crystalline energy scattered into the void, dissolving into nothing. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Volari homeworld was unprotected. On the planet below, panic erupted. General Jinho Beak commanded the ground forces. He was a large man, built like a bear, with a voice that could be heard across a battlefield. His soldiers called him the Mountain. He led the landing personally. Human dropships descended through the atmosphere, facing token resistance. The Volari had relied on their shields for so long that they had barely any military forces on the surface. Their security robots were quickly overwhelmed. Their civilian population fled in terror. Ginho had given strict orders. No looting. No unnecessary killing. No revenge. They were soldiers, not butchers. The palace of the High Arbiter stood at the center of the capital city. It was a magnificent structure built entirely of purple crystal that caught the light and scattered it into 1,000 colors. Jinho's forces surrounded it within hours. High Arbiter Thalox, Jinho broadcast. "This is General Jinho Beak of the United Earth Federation. You are under arrest for the murder of Admiral Doan Park. Come out peacefully, and no one else needs to be harmed." For a long moment there was no response. Then the palace doors opened. Thalix emerged alone. He was larger than any Volari Jinho had seen, his crystalline body pulsing with deep purple light. But that light was dim now, flickering. His form seemed to have shrunk, as if defeat had physically diminished him. He walked toward the human soldiers with slow, heavy steps. "I am Thalix," he said. His voice was no longer sharp. It was hollow. broken. I surrender myself to your custody. Ginho stepped forward. You murdered a man who came to you in peace, a man who asked only for the chance to speak. Thalax's crystal face was unreadable. He was an animal. His life had no value. Ginho felt anger rise in his chest. He wanted to strike this creature. He wanted to shatter him into 1,000 pieces, but he did not. Instead, he took out a pair of restraints specially designed for Valari prisoners. He attached them to Thalax's crystalline limbs. You are wrong, Ginho said quietly. Every life has value, even yours. That is why we are not going to kill you. We are going to put you on trial. We are going to show the galaxy what justice looks like. Thalax said nothing. As he was led away, other human forces moved through the palace. The 15 other officials on Sun Wu's list were found and arrested. Some begged for mercy. Some cursed the humans. Some simply wept. All of them were treated the same way. Restrained. Read their rights. Transported to holding cells aboard human ships. General Ginho Beak stood in front of the palace as the sun set over the Valari capital. His soldiers were already beginning the process of securing the city, distributing food to frightened civilians. Treating the wounded on both sides, a young lieutenant approached him. Sir, the prisoners are secure. What are your orders? Ginho looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, Admiral Doan Park had died for nothing more than asking for respect. We take them home, he said. We give them a fair trial. And we show the galaxy that humanity is not what they thought we were. The lieutenant saluted and hurried away. Ginho remained standing there for a long time, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. The hunt was over. The reckoning had begun. The trial was held on Earth. A special court was built in Geneva, large enough to hold representatives from every species in the galaxy. Screens were set up on every inhabited world, translating the proceedings into thousands of languages. For the first time in history, the entire galaxy watched as the powerful were held accountable. 16 defendants sat in the chamber. Former council leaders, high officials, military commanders. They had ruled the stars for longer than humanity had existed. Now they sat in chains, facing judgment from the very species they had dismissed as animals. At the center of them sat High Arbiter Thalax. He had changed in the months. Since his capture, his crystalline body, once brilliant purple, had faded to a dull gray. He did not speak unless spoken to. He did not look at the crowds that came to see him. He simply sat, waiting for whatever would come. Captain Sun Wu Im led the prosecution. He had spent 6 months building his case, gathering evidence from across the galaxy. Recordings, documents, testimony from witnesses who had been in the council chamber when Admiral Park was murdered. The evidence was overwhelming. On the day of the incident, Sun Wu said, standing before the court, Admiral Doan Park followed every protocol established by galactic law. He presented his credentials. He requested permission to address the council. He invoked Section 7 of the Galactic Charter, which grants every species the right to speak before a final decision is made. He paused, looking at the defendants. Arbiter Thalax did not simply deny this request. He ordered the execution of a diplomatic envoy, an unarmed man, a man who had come in peace. This was not a mistake. This was not self-defense. This was murder. Recordings were played. The galaxy watched Admiral Park stand tall and speak of friendship. They watched Thalax call him an animal. They watched the guard's arm pass through his chest. Many species had seen this footage before. But watching it in a courtroom with the killer sitting right there was different. The silence in the chamber was absolute. The defense argued that Thalax had acted according to council tradition, that humans were not recognized as a civilized species, that the laws did not apply to them. Sun Wu destroyed these arguments one by one. The Galactic Charter, he said, applies to all sentient species. It does not matter whether they are members of the Council or not. It does not matter whether they are considered civilized or not. The Charter exists to ensure that even the most powerful cannot act without consequence. High Arbiter Thalax knew this. He simply believed he was above the law. turned to face Thalox directly. You were wrong. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Witness after witness came forward. Council officials who had been in the chamber, alien diplomats who had tried to warn Thalox against his actions, even some Valari who testified that Thalox had grown increasingly paranoid and cruel in his later years. Lieutenant Valetfis Flacano testified on the 7th day. She walked to the witness stand with her head held high, her eyes finding Thalox in the defendant's section. I was there, she said. I stood next to Admiral Park when he addressed the council. I watched him try to build bridges with species who looked at us like we were dirt. I watched him remain calm and respectful, even when they insulted everything we were. Her voice cracked slightly, and I watched him die. Not because he did anything wrong, not because he threatened anyone. He died because he asked for the chance to be heard, because he believed that even the powerful should follow their own rules. She wiped her eyes. Admiral Park was the best of us. He believed in a future where humanity could stand alongside other species as equals. He believed that we could earn our place through peace, not war. The council killed that dream when they killed him. The courtroom was silent, but they did not kill humanity's spirit. They made us stronger. They united us in ways we had never been united before. And now, here we are, not as conquerors, not as tyrants, but as a species that still believes in justice, even for those who showed us none. She stepped down from the witness stand. As she passed Thalox, she stopped and looked at him. I hope you live a very long time, she said quietly. Long enough to understand exactly what you destroyed that day? Thalox said nothing. But his dull gray form seemed to dim even further. The verdict came on the 21st. Day all 16 defendants were found guilty. The charges included murder, conspiracy against diplomatic envoys, abuse of power, and crimes against sentient species. Under human law, such crimes could carry the death penalty. But President Minji Kong had made a decision. Long before the trial began, she rose to address the court. Defendants have been found guilty of the most serious crimes imaginable. They killed a man of peace. They started a war that cost millions of lives. They believed that their power put them above justice. She paused, looking at the galaxy watching her. Humanity has every right to demand their deaths. Many of my people want exactly that. But we did not fight this war to become what they were. We did not sacrifice so much only to prove them right about us. She took a breath. The defendants will not be executed. Instead, they will spend the rest of their lives making amends. They will travel to every world that suffered because of their arrogance. They will build monuments to the victims. They will work to repair the damage they caused. And on every monument, they will include the name and image of Admiral Doan Park, so that the galaxy will never forget what started this. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some were disappointed. Some were outraged. But many more nodded in understanding. Minji continued. Furthermore, the Galactic Council is hereby dissolved. It has existed for 100,000 years, but it has proven itself unworthy of its power. In its place, we propose a new governing body. The Stellar Assembly. Holographic image appeared above her, showing a new structure. A great ring, similar to the old council station, but different in design. The Stellar Assembly will have no high arbiters, no supreme leaders. Every species, no matter how old or how young, will have an equal voice, an equal vote. Decisions will be made through consensus, not through intimidation. Power will be shared, not hoarded. She looked directly at the cameras, broadcasting her words across the galaxy. This is not humanity's empire. This is not our revenge. This is our gift to the galaxy. A chance to build something better than what came before. The announcement sent shockwaves through every inhabited world. Some species feared it was a trick. Some suspected humanity was simply setting up a new form of control. But as the details emerged, as human diplomats met with representatives from hundreds of worlds, the truth became clear. Humanity meant what it said. Construction of the Stellar Assembly Station began within months. It was built at the exact location where the old council station had stood. But its design was entirely new. Open, transparent, welcoming. Every species that wished to join was invited. Even the Valari, stripped of their special privileges, were offered membership on equal terms with everyone else. The inauguration ceremony took place 1 year after the trial. Representatives from 300 species gathered in the great hall of the new station. They sat in a circular arrangement, no one higher than anyone else. No thrones. No pedestals. Just equals. President Minji Kong stepped to the central podium. But she did not give a speech. Instead, she turned and gestured to someone waiting at the side of the hall. Lieutenant Hannah Yoon walked forward. She had changed in the 2 years since Admiral Park's death. Her eyes were harder, her movements more confident, but there was still kindness in her face. Still hope. She stepped onto the exact spot where Admiral Park had stood when he was killed. The galaxy held its breath. 2 years ago, Hannah began, a man stood in this place and asked for respect. He asked for the chance to speak. He believed that even the weakest voice deserved to be heard. She looked around the chamber, at the hundreds of alien faces watching her. They killed him for that belief. They thought they were silencing us. They thought they were teaching us our place. But they were wrong. They did not silence us. They gave us a voice louder than we ever had before. She paused. I am not here as a conqueror. I am not here to demand tribute or obedience. I am here as the first human representative to the Stellar Assembly. I am here to finish what Admiral Park started. She took a breath. Humanity comes not as conquerors, but as neighbors. We do not seek to rule. We do not seek to dominate. We ask only for respect, for the chance to work alongside you, to learn from you, to grow with you. We have earned that right with our blood and our sacrifice. Now we offer our hand once more. She extended her hand, palm up, toward the assembly. Will you take it? Silence. Then slowly a representative stood. It was a Mallory, one of the first species to surrender during the war. Its insect-like limbs reached out toward Hannah. Another representative stood. And another. And another. Within minutes, the entire chamber was on its feet. 300 species, reaching toward humanity's representative. Not in submission. In acceptance, Hannah felt tears running down her face. She did not wipe them away. On Earth, billions watched. They saw their representative standing where their hero had died, surrounded by the galaxy's welcome. Many wept. Many cheered. Many simply sat in stunned silence. Admiral Doan Park had died believing that humanity could find its place among the stars through peace. His dream had died with him, but from the ashes of that dream, something new had grown. Something stronger. Humanity had proven itself not through violence, but through mercy. Not through conquest, but through justice. They had shown the galaxy that even the youngest species could lead with wisdom. And the galaxy had listened. In the great hall of the Stellar Assembly, Hannah Yoon lowered her hand. The chamber erupted in applause that crossed every boundary of species and language. Behind her, invisible but somehow present, she felt Admiral Park's spirit watching, approving, at peace. The war was over. The real work had just begun, and somewhere. In a memorial garden on the Valari homeworld, a statue of a human man stood tall. His hands were open at his sides. His face was calm, and at his feet an inscription in 1,000 languages read, he asked only for respect. Remember him. The galaxy remembered, and they always would.